Pound of Flesh by Shembre. Chapter 11. When Kovu came to, pulled out of an unconscious misery filled with shadows, flames, and deranged laughter, he was in the den at Pride Rock, safe once more. Squinting with blurry eyes, he saw that near his face was half a gourd filled with water. He perked his ears and listened to the soft voices around him. It was in the middle of the night.
Kiara's paws shall heal in a few days, Simba. Don't worry.
It's hard not to worry. Who were those two strangers in the fire? Did Kovu know?
I don't know, Mom.
Kovu lifted his pounding head and looked over. Rafiki was examining Kiara, who was sitting up. Simba and Nala were at their daughter's side as well. When Kovu grunted and moved his legs to lay upright, Simba looked over. "You're awake." Simba's brows were arched and his mouth was in a hard line. The king walked over to him. Kiara and Nala looked relieved. When Simba came closer, Kovu realized that Simba was tearing up. "Thank you, Kovu, for saving my daughter. You showed great bravery." Kovu nodded and smiled. His throat, nose and eyes still burned from running through the smoke.
"I wouldn't have done anything else."
His voice was rough, and he inwardly cringed as he breathed, drawing in air that stung his throat. His parched tongue moved around in his mouth over his gums and teeth. He lowered his head and drank from the halved gourd, intending to only drink a little. Before he knew it, he had finished the entire bowl, and Rafiki had to take it away to refill it. While Rafiki was gone, Simba spoke up. "Kovu, Kiara said that you saw someone in the fire, that it might not have been a random occurrence."
"I think someone started the fire. Yes,"
Kovu confirmed. His raspy voice was steady, but he detected a slight bit of cold anger in his tone.
"I saw two lions running. A lion and a lioness. I think the outsider started the fire."
Simba's face hardened. They would stoop to arson. They must have had this planned. "Daddy, how could they? How could they have known that we were going to be by ourselves?" "Well, let's just say that without the Pridelanders," it echoed in Kovu's mind, "I'd be nothing. They've got this traditional solo hunt thing that I've got to do by the next full moon." Well, isn't that just nice of them? Bet I could teach you a few things too. Kovu was grateful that the others weren't looking at him, because he flinched when he remembered what he had revealed to Vitani. He had thought nothing of it at all when he had told his sister about the hunt. Simba sighed. "The outsiders must have watched you somehow." With this, the king looked ill. Kovu was glad it was night. The darkness hid his guilt. He wasn't brave. He'd been afraid. He had put Kiara in even more danger than he'd already imagined. Vitani had betrayed him. Though she had warned him, Zira was clearly unhappy that he had refused her extended invitation to return to the outsiders. Kovu then caught himself flexing his claws. His face flushed hot. "I have to do something. Only I can fix this. It would be too dangerous for Simba to confront the outsiders on his own. I can't let Zira hurt my pride." When Simba put his paw on Kovu's shoulder, the young lion looked up. "I know that look on your face," the king said quietly. Kovu swallowed and arched an eyebrow. He rasped, "What look?" Simba pursed his mouth and removed his paw. "You're angry with them. I don't want you to do anything rash. I will take care of this." "But what if I will take care of it, Kovu? You do not go near your mother." Kovu fidgeted. Looking up at Simba, he nodded. "Yes, Simba, He wanted to trust that Simba could take care of that situation with the outsiders.
But I don't think I can allow you to. Simba, this is on me.
Simba nodded firmly. Now go get some rest. The tension in the Pride Lands, amplified by the fire set by the outsiders, left a disfiguring mark on the Pride Lands. They waited for another attack, but Zira and the outsiders stayed out of sight, and within days, the dread on every Pride Lander's face became obvious. After the days dragged into 1 week, Kovu felt as if they were waiting for Zira, with her followers stalking behind her to liberate them by finally leading the march on Pride Rock. Everyone spoke more quietly, as if keeping their tone hushed was enough to not alert the outsiders. Young cubs huddled in the grass, waiting for their parents to return to protect them, were nearly as conscious of mortal danger. And the ground beneath their paws and the sky overhead ceased to offer comfort. Now the Pride Lands and Pride Rock were suffocating and confining. Kovu and Kiara steadily regained their strength. Simba only allowed Kovu to rejoin him for the daily patrol after almost a week of recovery. When Simba was around the rest of the Pride, Kovu was impressed by how well the king hid his worry. But when they were on patrol together, the mask of calm and control slipped and loosened, whether the king knew he was exposing his inner anger or not. And now 2 whole weeks and 4 days later, with no more than 1 poached kill. Unless Simba declared war on Zira and her pride, unless Zira attacked Pride Rock, and unless the great kings provided a solution of their own, the lingering, agonizing stalemate would continue, and the last thing that Kovu wanted was a war between the 2 brides. I know what I have to do, but Simba isn't going to like that at all. During his waking hours and even in his sleep, Kovu ruminated over his plan and what kind of outcome he might have to expect. He debated with himself constantly over whether or not telling Simba about his plan would be a wise or a foolish thing to do. The king had already expressly forbid Kovu to seek out the outsiders, but the idea of going behind Simba's back made Kovu uneasy. But it's me. I'm the only one who can do anything about this problem. After the morning patrol with Simba, cautious not to catch the eye of his would-be father, Kovu excused himself and slipped away to the watering hole. He had wanted to sneak away in the middle of the night, but he knew someone would have noticed a lengthy absence. Only during the day would anyone think that he was merely out hunting or walking the Pride Lands. "Hey Kovu, how was patrol?" Kovu stiffened when he heard Kiara's voice behind him. He turned. The princess trotted up to the water's edge, where he was drinking. "Any trouble?" she pressed. He shook his head. "Nothing as usual." She lowered her head and drank for a moment. "Everybody's so tense," she remarked. "Do you want to go for a run together? To blow off some steam?" She bounced on her paws a bit. He inwardly winced and said nothing and continued to drink. His heart started to beat rapidly the longer he waited to respond. He wanted her to just leave on her own, but he knew she wouldn't. "You must be really thirsty, Kovu. She's not going to leave." Kovu stood up, and when he saw the look on Kiara's face, he knew he had given himself away, and that he was in deeper trouble than he had tried to convince himself he wasn't. "Kovu, are you alright? With everything that's happening, with the outsiders." He looked away and muttered, "You mean how they would prefer if everyone here dropped dead? And us the same?" Her voice lowered. "Yes, that." He looked at his paws. "It's torture waiting for something to happen. I wish Daddy and your mother could find a way to make peace," Kiara said. "But I'm not sure that could happen." Zira, Kovu said, turning to her, has come too far to have Simba change her mind. He hesitated before he said, and that's why I need you to keep a secret for me. Kiara lowered her ears and gave him a small confused frown.
Kovu, what is it?
He let out a heavy sigh. I'm going to talk to the outsiders. Kovu! Kiara took a step towards him. I have to talk to them because maybe someone will listen to me. I don't know what your father thinks he's going to do, but the outsiders won't wait for him to make up his mind once they've decided to stop torturing us. I'm going, he said. I need to trust you. In case I, forbid, get into trouble. I have to talk to the outsiders. Kiara pressed her ears against her skull. Her lips moved for a moment, but nothing came out. Please, Kiara, he urged. Do you understand how important this is? Slowly, she nodded as she looked sidelong.
You're taking a huge chance.
But do you understand? He pressed sternly. She looked him in the eye. You're caught right in the middle of the standoff, and nobody else but you can fix the situation. I know what they want you to do, but you won't. You're upset that they haven't given up on you. You want to prove to yourself that you're not who they think you are. A chill went down Kovu's spine. The last thing he'd expected was for Kiara to react even half as calmly as she was. He hadn't even been sure that she was aware of Vitani's visit, or what Zira had requested of him. He could only guess that she had asked Simba or Nala about it. He stuttered. Well, yes, basically. I don't think I've been given her enough credit. His face flushed. Kovu, I still don't think you should go, Kiara said quietly. She glanced over her shoulder. But go if you have to. I have to.
Okay. Please be safe.
She moved forward and rested her head on his shoulder to nuzzle his neck. He nuzzled her back and his breath caught a little. When he quickly stepped back, he couldn't look at her, even though there was a chance he wouldn't see her again. He turned away, saying briskly, I'll be back by sunset. I'm hunting, if anyone asks.
Okay, be safe.
He walked away from the watering hole as calmly as possible, just in case someone was watching from Pride Rock. Once he had made it to the other side of the watering hole, he started to jog. Every heartbeat pulsed through his chest. Anger and determination started to creep in, and he started to prepare himself for the poisonous environment he was about to enter after he found a way across the river. While on patrol with Simba, he had kept a sharp eye out, and unfortunately the safest path was to cross at a point further down the river, away from the angry river monsters who welcome you to the Outlands. When he knew he was almost out of sight of the watering hole, he slowed down and looked over his shoulder. His heart fluttered a little. He wanted to see Kiara still standing there as the young lioness who would keep his secret for the day. He squinted and felt sick when he did not see her. She had left, and Pride Rock loomed over the empty scene. I hope I'm making the right choice. Facing forward again, he picked up the pace. Time was slipping by him, and he knew he needed as much of it as he could get. He glanced at the blue sky. And time isn't all that I could use more of. Kiara watched Kovu take off. Had he really said that he was going to speak with the outsiders? Had he actually said those words? Was he running straight into trouble? Following Kovu did cross her mind. But what good would that do? He only wanted me to keep his secret. He's going to do what he wants to do. Kiara grimaced. Kovu had made her his lifeline. If anything happened to him that prevented him from coming back by dark, she knew she would have no choice but to tell someone that Kovu was in danger. And why? I better make myself scarce today, she thought as she looked down at the watering hole. I won't be able to get that worried look off my face. Someone will immediately know we're up to no good. She stood there until Kovu was a small mark on the land, and it was clear enough that he wasn't going to turn or even look back. I really hope you know what you're doing, Kovu, because I don't think you're prepared for what you'll find. End of chapter 11.